Multiverse listeners, welcome to Beyond Your Radio. I'm your host and creator, Beyond Your Radio, Mark Kuligowski. And guess what? Woo! It's time for Album Wars. That's right. Every month we select a war decree, ask our panelists to select their top 5 albums based on said decree. They will each reveal their 5 albums, although tonight it's 10, 5 on one and 5 on the other. Why? Well, because of what we're going to do. From their reveal of each album, they'll score points. So if they select an album and somebody else selected that album, obviously it moves up the point ranking. So the more matches we have, the better and higher it ranks. And then what happens is, well, at that point, as we move through the round, it'll be a final after the 4 of us are done. There'll be 4 on one side and 4 albums on the other. And then they'll face off. Number 1 will face the 4th, 2 will face 3, so forth and so on as the rounds continue. So here's the fun part. After the rounds are over and we have the final war, and again, the panelists have to choose every time we do these, we get the winning album. That winning album goes into the win and column. And what happens is on our 12th month, all 11 albums, I should say 12, all 11 albums will make it into that final war, which will be at the end of the year, and then the one album that scores the highest point value from our Album Listen Challenge. And right now, Album Listen Challenge, it is Rival Sons that has taken that over, and that's their album, The Great Western Valkyrie. So there you know. Now you know what you know. So, so what's the war decree? Rush versus Genesis. I know. It's unfair, or is it? We'll find out from our panelists tonight. But these are 2 of the most iconic progressive rock bands of all time, spanning decades and changing of musical styles. And obviously, one was always a trio. The other one was reduced to one. Both have left their mark on the music multiverse and in different ways. Rush, it could be considered the best progressive rock trio in history. In Canada, it's a fact, and it's undisputable. Undisputable. Actually, Gretzky's record was broken. 30 years, there might be somebody bigger and better than Rush. Who knows? An interesting vocal in both hands. Peter Gabriel, very unique, Mr. Dress Up. Wait a minute, is that a Canadian show?
Yes, it is.
Artistical impressions, social, economical, political expressionism, and then Geddy Lee, that vocal. That's about as unique as it probably gets in the popularity of the music scene, and a bassist to be reckoned with for sure, as much as to be respected by his peers, not only for his playing, but also for his just gentlemanly qualities. He just seems to be that top hat wearing kind of guy. Or Pocket Protectors Unite. Guitarists. Wow. Masters themselves, both in the progressive environment of their instruments. Well, who am I talking about? Well, you know Alex Lifeson. But Steve Hackett, that's the guy I want to talk about. Steve Hackett, genius guitar player. Should he have been kicked out of the band or left the band? I don't know. That might have been the way of that could have changed everything. But guitar's heavy. Guitars are great on these albums, and they have to be. It's part of the whole repertoire. Genesis, one of the most unique prog bands in the early 70s and into the 80s. You didn't know what you were going to get. The Construct by Tony Banks, it's progressive fusion, kind of melding his jazz ideas into the guitars, and then we come to this similarity that joins these 2 bands forever. The drummers, okay? The drummers. The power and control, and the best drummers in the world. One, a master of the kit, being able to ensnare any size you want. Do you want it to be the size of an entire block? He'll play it. He could play it. They're still live. Drum solos that people are still in awe of today and probably will be into the future. And that, of course, Neil Peart. Where where his counterpart, oh, I see what I did there,
Yeah.
can easily be considered one of the greatest of all time as well. Songwriting 80s wonder and drummer Phil Collins. They've marked the music multiverse forever in more ways than this show is prepared to discuss, nor do we have the time for. What we are battling for tonight is what one album will win out in the battle decree of Rush versus Genesis. In the tracks of this, I will say that when you think of the drumming, you think of Neil Peart as just an extreme master of the instrument. Phil Collins had that emotional drumming attachment, which kind of is the thing that separates the two bands in that regard. So, on the panel tonight, and I'm in no rush to do this. All the world's a stage to him, but he prefers to slay the microphone, baby. Ray Geska.
Hello. Good to be here.
She's a fifth of vodka and a Colin Firth. Damn, Deb Armitage, Hicks Maloney. Nobody saw what it is.
I'm not sure, but okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did I do here? Am I?
I don't know.
That was unbelievable. I
Thank
lost
God
my
I'm
whole
not
mind
your-
there after that
I'm
one.
not in your brain, thank God.
A colony of slippermen or carpet crawlers.
Ooh.
She's choosing slippermen, I think. Susie Q.
Okay.
Yeah. Carpet crawler seems scary to me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. We're going to kick it off. Let's see. We're going to start on the Rush side to start.
Okay.
So we'll kick it off with Susie Q because I know that it's her love.
Yeah, I would have loved to have been able to use a live album, but
No.
you know. So this was kind of hard, really, and probably at least a couple of these are too commercial for a lot of people. But I'm picking them for personal reasons, so that's kind of how I did it. And I'm just listing 5 to 1.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So, and I moved them all over the place, so my numbering system's all screwed up. But I went with Roll the Bones, 1991, Signals, 1982, Fly By Night, 1975.
Wait. Slow down. Signals. Okay.
Okay.
Sure, I put it in the right. And then Fly By Night.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Permanent Waves
Mm-hmm.
and Moving Pictures. It was hard though, because there were a couple other ones that I was moving in and out, but this is it.
Nothing you want to pontificate on. Well, it's fine.
Well, no, I mean, you already know my feelings on Rush. I think I was kind of the Rush person, and you were the Phil Collins obsessed person when we met. So I don't know how much you liked Rush, but I think I don't know, they're definitely one of the best bands out there. I don't know why people always say like they're hard to swallow or listen to. I think they're genius. So
This is true. This is true.
whether it's prog or whether it's rock or his voice or the drum, whatever, it's all good. So that's it.
All right. We'll move to Ray.
All right. Well, I have a little more to pontificate on when it comes to
Good.
Rush.
We need you today. We need you today, Ray.
Thank you.
We're so
Thank
happy.
you so much.
Yeah,
Good.
you're welcome.
Well, I'll tell you, for Rush, they've had a profound effect on my life growing up. They played a really big part in my formation into classic rock. So I'll start off at number 5, and I'll start with the album Hemispheres from Rush. Like other progressive type rock bands of the day, Rush was an acquired taste. They really were. When I was growing up and moving away from like the bubblegum pop of WKBW 1520, I started discovering, more of the classic rock with the help of friends. And we started getting into bands, First we got into Kiss, then we got into AC/DC, then it was the Stones, the Doors, and Van Halen. But then there was Rush. All of a sudden, there was Rush. My best buddy lived around the block, and he played the drums from a very early age. That's how I got introduced to Rush. That's how I got to know Neil Peart and his doppelganger, my buddy Jay, who was an incredible drummer and idolized Neil Peart. And, I would say arguably, but I'm just going to throw it out there and say the greatest rock drummer of all time. And Rush, arguably the greatest Canadian musical export, with all due respect to the Tragically Hip. But again, it took some getting to know them. And after getting to know their more popular stuff, in 80, 81, when I really got to know them, then I started going back and listening to some of the other stuff, such as Hemisphere. This was one of their shorter albums overall, but they had some amazing extended tracks on the album and really highlighted their true musicianship in rock and roll. So I would give a nod to Cygnus X1, Book 2, and La Villa Strangiato. All, hopefully I'm not mispronouncing that, but what a track. And of course, The Trees.
The Trees, baby.
One of my
Amazing. Amazing. Number 4, I'm going to go with Signals. This was the follow-up to the amazing and spectacular Moving Pictures album. Synthesizers really started to come into play in the early 80s for Rush. They started getting onto that sound of the new age and the new wave bands of the day, but they didn't lose their rock edge. But the synthesizers really started to take a lot of effect on these albums. Subdivisions is probably a challenger for my favorite Rush song altogether. Just incredible. Then you had New World Man, Analog Kid, Digital Man, all incorporating different sounds as the band was evolving right before our eyes. And this, before our ears and before our eyes, because this was early MTV in those days too. Number 3, I'm going to go with Permanent Waves. This was 2 albums prior to Signals. It was the first album that I knew of Rush from the point of being brand new. For this album, it came out and we were just blown away by Spirit Over Radio. I mean, that song was just, to this day, it still sounds fresh and powerful. And Free Will, what a song. Rush really kept its hard rock roots, from their prior albums, but again, adding new sounds of the day. Some new wave influences you started to hear in their sound, along the lines of like Peter Gabriel and Police almost. And then Natural Science is a deep cut on this album. And you can hear a little bit of reggae influence on it. These boys just never stopped evolving. It was incredible. I don't have a lot to say about number 2 other than simply epic. This is an album you can't pick apart for singles. It's the full-out album. If there was ever an album, it sounded so good then, and it sounds so great now, and it's 2112. Just amazing. Incredible. And then number 1, Moving Pictures. Absolutely. I can't, as great as the other albums were, I can't not give Moving Pictures number 1. I saw the tour, I think it was May 5th, 1981. I watched the videos, rocked out for years and years and years. Tom Sawyer, Red Barchetta, Limelight, The Camera Eye, on and on. Not just the best Rush album, but literally one of the greatest rock albums of all time, Moving Pictures. Alex, Getty, Neil, greatness.
Wow.
There you go.
There we go. Great.
Heard it. Did the truth be spoken? Deb,
I got nothing to say now. All right. Well, Rush is a hard one for me. I'm not a Geddy Lee fan, so that's why this is hard for me. Other than that, though, I mean, I definitely respect. They are wonderful. They are great. They are iconic. I wouldn't want to be on an album catalog review for them, though. That would be very difficult for me. But Ray, I think you're my best friend. Number 5, Hemispheres.
All right.
Number 4, Signals. I have a little difference here right now. My number 3 is 2112.
Okay.
My number 2 is Permanent Waves. And my first is Moving Pictures. Every single song on that album, even when I didn't like Geddy Lee's voice, to my chagrin, I love that album.
Can't deny it.
Yeah, so this was just hard for me because maybe if you had put them up against somebody besides Genesis, it would have been a little bit easier for me because Genesis is just near and dear to my heart. So, but I think they're a formidable foe, of course. So those are mine.
Okay. All right. So for me, I am going to obviously always be different than this crew. I don't know
Of
why.
course.
Obviously. Your middle
Um,
name is Contradiction.
okay, so for me, yes, I was the Phil Collins guy. I get involved with that woman in the corner there, Sue, and you cannot get involved with her and not be into Rush. So Roll the Bones was the first concert we went to, and I had never experienced the band. I knew today's Tom Sawyer because they played the hell out of that song. So anyway, I start off my journey a little bit different because there are certain things that connect with me at certain times. So my number 5 is Vapor Trails. One Little Victory, and I saw them on this tour in Carolina on the 4th of July, fireworks and all. Some sort of washing machines in the stage or whatever. I don't even remember what.
What? Really?
They incorporated a lot of new things within it. All they had like 4 or 5 tracks from that album were in there, and for them to be able to do that and the crowd to still be there and not be like waiting for YYZ or Red Barchetta, always on their game. They were a band that deserves the title of progressive in all ways and every way because they didn't stay where they were. They and as much as some of the keyboard things is a little cringy, they did it and they held the position. They stepped up to more harder rock positions and times of alternative, which is where this album is. My number 4 is 2112 from 1976. It's near flawless from front to back. It's not that long a record. When you think of Rush, you have this thought process in your head that, oh my God, it's long. Their albums are really not that long.
Correct.
38, 40 minutes, although there's one. So that particular album, Lessons, Twilight Zone, it's cool stuff. And truly, truly something I've always gone back to. Permanent Waves. How can you not have it on there? That's my number 3. It's Spirit of Radio, Jacob's Ladder,
Oh yeah, Jacob's Ladder.
Yeah.
So
Great
here's
song.
where I'm different. Well, I was different at number 5, but my number 2, I still believe it is the greatest ending album ever done. Clockwork Angels is a masterpiece.
Really?
Clockwork Angels is 1 hour and 6 minutes.
What year
This
is
is
it?
a band that's 2012. It was the final album. I don't know whether they knew it was the final album or not, but it sure as hell sounds like they threw everything in but the kitchen sink. It's a feast. It might be their longest album, I'm pretty sure, besides a live record. It's all out there. It's bangers, every single one of them. Neil Peart is playing his ass off, and every particular song is completely different than the prior or the next. There's no rehash. Nothing sounds like anything. That's another thing with Rush. You never went, that kind of sounds a lot like, and that kind of sounds a lot like, no. And
Never.
no. And there are times where you might not say that about the one across the war here, maybe. My number 1, just like everybody else, I would find it very difficult for anyone to put Moving Pictures anything but number 1.
Yeah.
This is a 1981 progressive rock album that showcased from start to finish. It is the perfect record. How to make prog accessible, catchy, monstrous in musicianship. 4 progressive rock untouchable classics. Tom Sawyer reaches that Stairway to Heaven like status. They're not afraid to They're not afraid to play it on radio. They're not. They don't care how long the song is or where it starts. But But it's 2 songs on there that steal the live show. Red Barchetta and YYZ. And that's what makes this band superlative, is the live show. If you don't like Rush, go to a live show. 75% of you that don't like Rush will fall in love with Rush. You don't have that opportunity, but maybe if you sit in a surround sound and put it up on YouTube and play a whole show from start to finish, or get one of the DVDs of Rush at 30 or Snakes and Arrows, or what, there's all kinds of live footage, maybe you got a chance. And I feel blessed that the woman who likes the Colony of Slippermen decided to let me into this.
Oh,
That's
I love
where-
that. I love that.
All right.
I'm getting all sentimental.
We will switch gears now to that band across the pond. These Genesis now, and we'll start back with Sue.
Okay. Well, I'm going to keep my comments short again. And this time mainly because I don't know as much about Genesis anyway. So I kind of went more on the songs that I like and have enjoyed over the years. But so my number 5, and they, I mean, I really do love Genesis too. Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins, it doesn't really matter to me, but then I guess I wasn't like, I didn't have an allegiance to either one either. So that probably changes things too. I don't know, but maybe not. So I went with number 5, Duke. My number 4 is, and then there were 3. My number 3, Abacab. I feel like Deb's judging me right now.
No, I will never judge you. I will never judge you, but I am differing in opinion. That's all.
I can feel it.
Judgment free. Judgment free.
My number 2 is Genesis, and number 1 I went with. She's gonna be like, I went with Invisible Touch.
So it's all Phil.
So, but you know what? I mean, a lot of this too is I just remember Mark singing away to certain songs. So it's just, those are the ones that are stuck in my head.
That's why this is good. I'll get to it, but that I will have comments for you when it's my turn. I still love you.
Probably why I did this show. It has nothing to do with what I see who wins or I care. It's just like, oh, I want there to be a war among the panelists. Are you out of your cotton picking mind? All right. Ray, what's
Raymond
on the Genesis side?
Let me just start by saying, I'm not a huge prog rock guy to begin with. And when we start talking about prog rock, and I think we talked about this on a prior show, you had the prog rock from the early 70s, your King Crimsons and your Roxy Music and a lot of that stuff. And Genesis and Yes both fall into that. I think Genesis is more in line with Yes than they are with Rush.
Absolutely.
And the thing is with Rush, I think
I agree.
Rush, are they categorized as prog rock? Yeah, maybe, but I don't see them as a prog rock band. I see them as a hard rock band.
I agree.
They rock hard, unlike these prog rock bands. None of these bands, Genesis included, can rock as hard as Rush. You might like one, you might like the other, but the bottom line is very few bands rock out as hard as Rush. And at that point, when I was coming up and getting into Rush and listening to Genesis and other bands, I just wanted to rock hard. In 80 and 81, I was rocking out to Rush and Van Halen, and Ronnie James Dio's Black Sabbath and all that kind of stuff. Whereas Genesis, okay. So let's talk a little bit about Genesis. So Peter Gabriel, yeah, he's a heck of a singer. Liked a lot of his solo stuff. And then I went back and listened to the Genesis album. And I got some friends that they just love this band beyond belief. And I'm like listening to a whole album and I'm like, man, I'm really trying here. I'm really, really trying to listen to this whole album. And I'm having a hard time, and I try to like as much music as I can, but listening to a whole Genesis album, at least pre-Phil Collins, was really difficult. You know, outside of the one that maybe two that I'm going to list here, but it got to be difficult to listen to a full Peter Gabriel Genesis album. But with that said, I'm just going to start out. I think the last one with Peter would have been was it the second last, maybe? Well, Selling English by the Pound came out in 1975, right? So
Yeah.
that was right before Lamb Lies Down. So that album, they really started to become a little bit more than what they had been up to that point. It was they were very popular in England. You know, they started making their big explosion here, but they were still kind of a cult band. You know, they never really got a lot of heavy airplay anywhere. At least didn't seem to me at that point. And even years later, it was a very select songs that would get any kind of airplay on classic rock radio from Genesis.
Right.
So with that said, so Selling England by the Pound, I would put at number 5. Then at number 4, I'm actually going to go with The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. So I would probably say that's probably my favorite Peter Gabriel era song or album, because it was really good. I mean, Lamb Lies Down on Broadway and Carpet Crawlers were, in my estimation, their two finest records outside.
That's a beast of a record to over. Like, if you're saying I'm hard to listen to. That is a beast of a record. There are things going on in that record that still today I don't even know if the band remembers what they did.
I would say
there's some
I think by
comments
that
about
point they had evolved to a point where a lot of that stuff I really couldn't get to. This one's at least worth listening to in full, and it still resounds, pretty loudly today. So I'm all right with that. And then Genesis, they kind of changed, right? They became, Phil left, Steve Hackett left, the whole thing. It got down to the three of them, which happens to be my third choice, was when there was just Phil and Tony and Mike. And then there were three. Follow You, Follow Me. One of the most beautiful songs ever written by a rock band. I can think back to, I don't know, I heard it as a graduation song. Back in the days, I was playing music at weddings. It was a wedding song.
Oh, really?
I think I heard it maybe at a funeral. You know what I mean? So it was just like all over. It just meant so much to so many people, and it was just incredible. So at number 2, I'm going to go with the self-titled Genesis, which came out in '83, which, for the record, was the last great Genesis album as far as I'm concerned. That's with Mama and Home by the Sea and whatever else was on that album. So that was really good, right? It was the kind of the brownish with the yellow, right? The yellow border and all that. I remember it came out like 83. Just really, I mean, Mama was just like a haunting song.
Yeah.
Again, early MTV stuff. So you would hear this stuff all the time, right? You would see it all the time. So that was really good. But the album that I remember buying it new and hearing it for the first time was Abacab. And your old school Genesis people are going to look at me like, what are you talking about, Abacab? What about this album? What about Nursery Crime? And what about Foxtrot? And what about Trespass? And all that. And I'm going, nah, man, I'll take Abacab. No Reply at All, the title song, Man on the Corner. I think I still have the cassette of that one too. I think I have the album, the CD, and the cassette of that album.
Wow.
But I think, again, once Genesis in '83 was really after that, it just like they just became adult contemporary schlock. You couldn't get away from Phil Collins solo stuff. I don't know how many times my ears were bleeding from hearing Susu Studio, and he started doing these duets with Marilyn Martin, Separate Lives and all this stuff. It was just, I had enough by that point. So,
how do you really feel?
Yeah, so I'm
So
going to
you
go.
didn't join. That's why you didn't join us on the catalog review show, Phil Collins. All right.
No, I missed that one. Darn poo.
What guy?
So yeah, there you go. Abacab. Oh man, I can still hear that bass and drum beat. That just especially the album version one went out like 7 minutes of that. That was great. There you go.
All right.
Nice.
Deb, if you could possibly redeem us from the prior two panelists.
No, because This was really more difficult than I thought because I had to remember that I was going to be on this show and everybody else would probably be coming from a different place than me. And then I'm like, well, first I'm starting with Rush that isn't, I'm not a Geddy Lee fan. And then there's Genesis that I really think is two totally different bands in my opinion, which
Mhm.
makes it hard for me because I was a Genesis fan old school and I will always love Peter Gabriel and his voice and his songwriting. And when he left Genesis, it was like a death to me.
Mhm.
So it's hard for me to go into the catalog after him and say it's Genesis. Not that I don't like the albums. I do like the albums, but to me it's not Genesis. It's Phil
Sounds like a
Collins.
war within.
It is. They're very good. So I would say I do agree with what you've been saying as far as not, listening to some of those older albums in the entirety and how it feels and hard to get into, but drop some acid and you'd be right there. That's all I've got to say,
But wouldn't that
but
hurt
we
my
won't do
floor?
that on this show.
Would that
What?
hurt my hardwood floor?
No, no, make sure you've just put it under your tongue, honey.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so with that being said, my list is not going to be much like anybody else's, and that's okay, but that will make the war a little bit fun, other than the fact that my picks are probably not going to get double strikes on them to be in the war. So my number 5 is Selling England by the Pound. I don't have a lot to say about the individual songs in that on these albums because I think the whole entire album in and of themselves are a feel of the time and what they were doing and how weird they were. And I liked weird. So number 4 was Trick of the Tail. Number 3 was Winds in the Wuthering. Now here is where I'm going to whisper it. Number 2 is Abacab.
Wow. I'm
Cool.
stunned.
Cool.
I don't know why. I just liked I had to put it in there because it was good. And
Mhm.
it's a Genesis. We're supposed to be talking about Genesis. I'm trying here. But number 1 is Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. I love metaphors. I love poetry. I love anything literary. I was very good at deciphering what writers were saying behind the words, that maybe the words were masking what was really there, and you got to read into that. You got to read into this album, and it
Mhm.
was weird too. Um, so I think that I was just mad that Peter Gabriel left the band. So if you went and did post Gabriel Genesis against somebody else, I'd have a whole different feel about it. I'm not mad at them. I'm not mad at them, but that's my list. So I had 1 on there with you, Ray. That's it. No, 2.
No, you
Two.
got
Oh,
Selling England
3.
by the
Three.
Pound.
Sorry. I get 3.
Yeah.
Okay. We're still friends.
Opportunity.
But Sue and I,
Yeah.
we'll
Different
talk
ways.
later. We're usually spot on.
Hmm.
Okay, Mark, go. I'm so interested in this.
Genesis might actually be one of those bands in history that there is more in the going back in the catalog than to experience at the time you came in.
Yep.
Going to sound odd, but it's true.
Makes sense.
Accessibility, no. Genesis did not make accessible records.
No, they didn't
I
care.
don't know. I should have read Phil's autobiography. I didn't, and probably Peter Gabriel has
Ah.
one too. But we have to remember that the project of this is Tony Banks, right? This is his band, I
Mhm.
believe, from the
Yeah.
conceptualization, right?
Mhm.
But that I came in at about the time of That's All. All right. That's all. That was on the radio. It's no fun being a legal alien, blah, blah, blah. All right. And I liked it. Right. But then I go, wow, this band. And then you start to go back and you start to go back, you start to go back. And all of my are on cassette at a certain point because that's what the format was. I've
Yeah.
since done replacements and stuff, but when I in going back, I immersed myself into it because at the first play I went, well, wait a minute, this is not oh, there's none of that. There's a whole lot of different things going on with Peter Gabriel, but nothing of that hit, nothing of that punch or kick. It's like you said, metaphor, innuendo,
Mhm.
Scottish shit that I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
I mean
Yes.
the fifth of Firth. I don't know about an ever changing river. What do I look like? Some sort of scholar? Look at me, right? But so this is something I had to get into, and I got into it. I did. So here's my list based on going back and not. I mean, I love Phil. Phil is a songwriter extraordinaire. He will be remembered forever, despite what people will say. Anyway, my
Okay.
number 5. Where am I here? Jeez. Oh, it's on up here anyway. Why am I looking over there? My number 5, Guilty as Charged, Invisible Touch. Why? Oh my God, Land of Confusion. How do you not love that crap? Let's make fun of the politicians. Let's have a ball. They probably had a bong too. Who knows? But
Killer video.
I think Benny Hill's in the video, right? No, is that another one?
Oh, maybe.
Benny Hill might have been another video, but that album just had all kinds.
Video was
And
awesome.
the Brazilian is a lot of the instrumental tracks on these records that I'm going to mention were also deeper cuts. And I Pete Pardo of Sea of Tranquility made he just did the Phil Collins catalog review show that he did a ranking, and of course it got watched by 5,000 people. He liked that kind of stuff more, and I agree with him in that. He just wished Phil would have done more solo stuff that had instrumentation to it, because that was there's cool stuff there. Just like Genesis, I think that those are good stuff, right? So my number 4 is Genesis. Why? There are deep cuts here that work so well. One of them became the soundtrack opening for a television show, and of course there's all kinds of stuff. Home by the Sea might be the best of the prog of Collins, 2-part thing that they had, right? You got to also remember too, at the early stages with Gabriel, and even when the band switched and Gabriel was gone, Phil was not doing the writing. He was part of the writing, if you watch in that. So when he was singing and keeping, like when we get to these older things, he was trying to keep the pretty Gabriel, Tony Banks, the kind of writing and portrayal of that. So my number 3 is Duke. Behind the Lines. If that didn't signify some sort of change in fusion and a jazz-oriented connection, which is Tony Banks all over the place, Duke's Travel and Duke's End. These are the kind of things that signified what Genesis continued to be, regardless of Gabriel or Phil Collins. These are the kind of songs. And when I get to my next one, you're going to realize it, because there's another trend that hits that album too, and the one that I have at number 1. So there's always that. There's pieces of progressive nature there, like Collins is trying to do his best Gabriel. Number 2, Nursery Crimes.
I had that on my list.
Salamanca. Boom. Boom. All right, there it is.
Yeah.
Right? This is that which I'm speaking about when you talk about Duke's Travel and Duke's End, the instrumentation, the power of the instrumentation. I don't need you to sing. I can feel it, right? And that's the compliment to all the players in the band, right? And my number 1 is the essential one that I always go to. It is considered perfection by a lot of people in the prog world. For me, it is too, and that is Trick of the Tail. I will forever be haunted by Squonk. I still don't know what Squonk is.
I know. What is Squonk?
Every band should have fucking Squonk. All right, Squonk, Squonk, Squonk. Put it in your blender. Put it in your mixing machine. Put it in your drum set. I don't even know what it is, but have it, because this album has it. Robbery, assault, and battery. Yes.
Yes, robbery,
part, right?
assault, and battery.
And guess what?
Yes.
That leads to Illegal Alien. That leads to That's All. And this album, number 1, only in one country ever.
Where?
France. So apparently they know more than champagne.
They know what squonk is.
Yeah.
It's a variation of escargot.
Yes.
Who knows? You know, Mark, before we go on, I just want to say when you said the thing about Genesis and Scotland and all the weird stuff, I had in my notes, this war was like Braveheart. Scotland is against England in this thing. Genesis is Scotland and Russia's England, and Scotland will win. That's what I said.
Well,
War cry.
our war cries. All right. All right. We
Okay.
have the tallies in, and we'll start on the
Okay,
Rush
let's go.
side. The
Okay.
number 1 seed will be
Mhm.
Moving Pictures. That was collaborative. Everyone on the panel had them at number 1. Pretty much. They will face off against Signals, which landed 4th. Then in the next down at number 2 was Permanent Waves. And then that will face off against 2112.
Hmm.
On the opposite side, number 1, Abacab. Shocker.
I know.
Trick of the Tail is what it will go up against.
Mm.
It's number 4. And number 2 is Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
And that will go up against The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Everybody
Okay.
have, I'll do that again once we get forward. So on to round 2. Here we go.
Here we go.
Let's start off with the bottom side of the bracket. So we're going to say Permanent Waves, the number 2 choice, versus number 3 choice, 2112. So Permanent Waves versus 2112. And we go to Sue.
I will go with Permanent Waves.
Ray.
2112.
Deb.
Permanent Waves.
I'm Permanent Waves.
Really?
Oh, Ray, I'm sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
shocked.
that's all right. It's a great album.
Yeah, my 2112 was at 4. Permanent Waves was my number 3. It was 1 point away.
Hmm.
Okay.
So Permanent
Close.
Waves will
That was a
move
close
on
one.
to the next
It was a
round.
close one.
Moving
Good job,
Pictures
2112.
at number 1 versus Signals, the 4th seed. Woohoo. I don't think there's going to be an upset here, but let's just play the game anyway, shall we?
Okay.
So,
Moving.
Ray,
Pictures.
what? Deb,
Moving Pictures.
and I'll sign up for. So it's a clean sweep. So we will have
Mhm.
Moving Pictures
Yep.
facing off against Permanent Waves. Here we go.
Okay.
I normally, right? I keep going.
Mhm.
And I can't even remember.
Yeah,
what
and
the
then
hell I've done.
we
go
yeah,
the
then
other
we've got
side.
yeah.
Okay.
You here?
All right. Moving
All right.
Pictures versus Permanent Waves. So,
MP.
Ray,
Moving Pictures.
Deb,
Same old, same old.
it's a clean sweep. Moving Pictures, as predicted when I put this together.
Yeah.
I
Did
think
you
you
really?
could put 30 more people on the panel, probably come up with the same thing.
Yeah.
Maybe. Unless there's 30 idiots like me.
Okay.
On to the opposite side, dealing with Genesis. We'll start off at the bottom of the bracket. Genesis versus Lamb Lies Down on Broadway. Let's start with Deb.
Lamb.
Ray.
I'm gonna go against my order here. Now that we've been talking all this, and I'm gonna go with Lamb.
Wow.
Woo!
Raise my man.
Woo! Sue!
Come on.
I gotta do Genesis. I don't know the other one very well.
I know. No, you're right. You got to do what you got to do. It's okay.
And
You're misguided, but
I am going to do Genesis. So now
Oh,
oh,
wow.
what do we do now? What happens?
I have to go to the counts of the points on there.
Oh,
So
no.
let us go to Lamb.
Oh, well.
Lamb got a total of 5. Genesis got a total of 6.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Genesis
That's going to be easy then next round for me.
Abacab at
think
number
too
1
hard.
versus 4. Trick of the Tail. Damn.
Trick.
Ray.
Abacab.
Sue.
ABBA.
Ah!
Mark is picking Trick of the Tail, of course.
Okay.
So this will also go down to a shootout.
It's going to be Abacab.
All right. So Abacab's total points 6.
Mhm.
Trick of the Tail 5. Wow, 1 point. Abacab.
I can't join this show anymore. I was completely blocked out.
That's how
It's
I
okay.
feel.
I won't cry.
That's how I feel
I
on
won't
most
cry.
of these shows. The
Yeah,
album
you
wars
do.
never go where I think they're going.
Yeah,
All right,
you're
this
right.
one will not be easy. Or will it be? Who knows?
It will be for me.
Damn.
Abacab. Abacab.
Ray.
What are we going up again? I didn't catch
Abacab
it.
versus Genesis.
Abacab.
Sue.
Hang on.
Hang on.
This is hard, this one.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Okay, hang on a second. All right, Abacab.
That was the only way Abacab was going to win. Because Genesis has the higher scoring point total. So if you would have picked Genesis and I would have picked Genesis, it would have been Genesis, but it's going to be Abacab 3-1.
Wow.
Yes, if you can believe it. All right.
Here we
The
go.
final battle of the night will be Abacab versus Moving Pictures.
Same
We're
here.
going to start with Sue.
Moving pictures.
Shocker. Ray.
Moving pictures.
Damn.
This is so, I knew this was going to happen.
Be true to you.
No, I am being true to me because the
Oh.
album that's going up against this one, I have to pick Moving Pictures because Abacab will not ever beat Moving Pictures.
Yeah.
There you go. And no matter, my vote does not matter. Moving Pictures. When I put this together, I thought to myself, I got a feeling. I've got
Interesting.
a feeling.
Great
I
job.
love that
people.
though. I love
Good.
that.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I will thank the panelists for doing this tonight. This is not an easy thing to do when you love bands as much as you do, especially bands with the catalogs as large as these are.
Mhm.
I'm going to spare the panelists from this album war that puts a band against a band for the next one.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to 1985.
Okay. That's
The
easier.
War Decree is 1985.
Awesome.
Anything from 1985.
Yes.
Yep.
Any
Sounds
album.
like fun.
Album, not
1985.
live.
No,
So-
it can be a live album.
Oh, it can?
If you're,
Wait,
it just can't be an EP.
okay.
Oh, it can't be under a blood red sky then.
No.
Uh-huh.
Also think of yeah, it's true. That's 1985 will be the
Interesting. I like that. I'm gonna like that one.
Yeah.
So,
See you
what
then,
would
guys.
be your picks, people out there? Give us how this war would have went down for you. Would love to see your 5 from each band and the albums, what you think of the bands, how you experienced them, and how you came to terms with all of this. That's the idea of this show. And if you didn't know Rush or Genesis or one or the other, will you go down a rabbit hole? As they are very large rabbit holes to go down. We're on the web at beyondyourradio.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, of course, articles, videos, got a podcast in a few days, all about music, albums, bands, artists, anything we can get our hands on. Go Beyond Your Radio with us, a real music appreciation channel. Join me on Thursday for Keep It Dark, if you dare.
No.
Thanks for watching and happy listening.
Bye.
See you guys.
Yes.